I never told anyone about the film. So how did it leak? Silence. That kind of silence that crushes your lungs. Only the soft hum of a laptop and the sound of breath being held. Jungkook didn't move. Taehyung didn't blink. On the screen between them glowed a damning email. Subject: final offer for lead role. Midnight Reckoning. Confidential. Sender: Redwood Films. Los Angeles recipient: Kim Taehyung CC. JJK to backdoor at email.com. Taehyung's voice had been quiet, almost like he was asking about the weather. But the weight behind his question was unbearable. Did you send that email, Kook? Jungkook's throat moved as he swallowed. He didn't speak. Couldn't. The email had been copied to an alternate account. A backup account. An account that shouldn't even exist. But it did. And worse, it had been sent from the dorm's IP address. From room 05, that is room point 3 weeks earlier, Taehyung had been offered the role of a lifetime, a lead in a Hollywood blockbuster. Directed by a 2-time Oscar winner. A script so beautifully tragic it could define a generation. And a paycheck that made headlines behind closed doors. But he didn't sign. Not because he didn't want it, but because of one simple, cruel truth. Jungkook's name was already burning under the spotlight that a rumor had leaked weeks prior. Nothing confirmed, but enough to put the group's unity into question. Enough for tabloids to write about internal fractures and suspicious silences. If Taehyung left for the US now, if he disappeared for 6 months of filming, the world would assume he abandoned ship. That he turned his back on his brother while the group bled. He said no. Quietly, with no press, no fanfare, no goodbyes. He didn't even tell Jungkook, because real loyalty doesn't ask for applause. But then came the betrayal. 2 weeks later, news broke. Taehyung declined major Hollywood film to preserve group image amid ongoing internal tensions. No names were mentioned. But the internet didn't need names. Fans connected the dots in under an hour. And once again, Jungkook became the headline. The pity was immediate. He must feel terrible. Taehyung gave up so much for him. Jungkook should speak up at least. It didn't matter that Jungkook hadn't asked for the sacrifice. It didn't matter that he never even knew that Teo the world. Taehyung was the hero. And Jungkook? The burden. Behind closed doors, Jungkook burned. He didn't feel grateful, that he felt humiliated. Taehyung's silence, which was meant as protection, felt like condescension. And the public's sympathy, it strangled him. He wasn't a child who needed saving. One night, in a haze of anger and exhaustion, he did something reckless. He called a reporter. Someone he'd known since their rookie days. Off the record? Of course. Taehyung didn't do it for me. Don't drag my name into this. He's loyal, yeah, but don't make me the reason. He didn't mean to confirm the story, but that's exactly what he did. And the next day, the news exploded with context, with fire. Then came the fan investigation. A fan site known for uncovering truths most would rather bury posted screenshots from the leaked email. It wasn't just speculation anymore. The metadata showed the email had been copied, and they traced it back. Same timestamp, same day. Sent from the group's shared dormitory, but not from Taehyung. From an IP registered to room 05, from an account linked to Jungkook. And now, in the dark of their shared silence, they stood across from each other. Taehyung's laptop still open. Jungkook's hands trembling. Taehyung didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He just looked at him. Tired. Sad. Older than his years. I didn't want to be a hero, Kook. I just wanted us to stay whole. And with that, he left. There was no explosion. No screaming match. No tears. Just absence. A hollow coldness that began to stretch in the spaces between rehearsals and green rooms. A silence that deepened with every polite nod and every avoided glance. The fans noticed first. Moments of tension during interviews. Missed eye contact, the way they never stood next to each other anymore. But they didn't know. Not yet. Not until a live stream weeks later. Jungkook sat in front of the camera, alone, the room dim. His voice low. He didn't have a script. He didn't wear makeup. He barely looked into the lens. His eyes were red. I thought he was trying to be a hero, he whispered, almost laughing bitterly. But he wasn't. He just wanted to protect me. And I became the reason he stopped shining. He looked up then, and for a moment, It wasn't an idol on screen. IT was just a boy who'd broken something he loved and didn't know how to fix it. The offer came at 3:14 a.m. Seoul time. Taehyung had been awake, lying in bed, listening to the faint humming of the AC and the occasional cough from someone down the hall. His phone lit up once, then again, with a vibration that felt too intentional to ignore, that he reached over without thinking, more out of habit than curiosity. His thumb unlocked the screen. There it was. A name he didn't expect to see again so soon. Michael Eastman, director of The Pale Season, Gravestone, The Fall of Iris. Subject line: "Let's make this real, Taehyung." His breath caught halfway through his chest. He opened IT. IT was everything. A lead role, a character written with him in mind. Eastman had been following his short films, his expressions during stage performances, even his silent acting in fan cams. He referenced blue and gray in the email, called it haunting in the best way. The studio would handle his visa, his housing in Los Angeles. They even blocked out scheduling to avoid overlapping with any major group activities. That IT wasn't just a film. It was an exit, a door to something beyond the noise, beyond the machinery of K-pop, a world where he could express, bleed, burn, be seen, not just as Taehyung from BTS, but as a person with weight and gravity and shadow. That he stared at the screen for a long time. And then he closed at 0.2 days passed before he responded to "I in that time." He watched as Jungkook spiraled. Quietly, subtly. The group was preparing for a performance at a major award show, and while Jungkook hit every note, every mark, there was something missing behind his eyes. The rumor about him had started small. A grain of suggestion, photos doctored or misinterpreted, a few Reddit threads digging too deep, but caught like dry leaves in summer. Soon the headlines were everywhere. Taehyung saw the change. I in the way the stylist whispered just outside earshot. I in the way management asked them to stay quiet for a while. I in the way Jungkook started flinching whenever his phone lit up. Taehyung sat alone in the practice room, his phone on the floor beside him. That he read the offer again. His thumb hovered over the reply button, and instead, he opened a new email, typed 6 words: "Thank you. I have to decline." No explanation, no drama, just a quiet goodbye to a future that would have changed everything. That he never told Jungkook. Because this wasn't about guilt or martyrdom. Or trying to be the noble one. IT was about survival. Their survival. Back in the present, as news of the leak rejection exploded online, Jungkook's hands clenched in his lap. That he'd read the comments. Every last one. And every single one said the same thing. Taehyung saved him. Taehyung gave up Hollywood for Jungkook. Jungkook owes him everything. And that word, oh, that was the knife. Jungkook had never asked him to stay. He hadn't even known. And now, he looked like a parasite feeding off his friend's silence. The weight of that pity was unbearable. He felt like a stain on Taehyung's legacy. So when the reporter called, and Jungkook's hands were shaking, and his pride had rotted into fury, he let it slip. He didn't do it for me. Jungkook snapped. Don't put me in that headline. He didn't even tell me. And that was at 0.3 sentences, but they were enough to confirm everything the public had only guessed at. The day after the call, he woke up to find Taehyung sitting at the kitchen counter. The air was thick, heavy with something neither of them wanted to name. There was a laptop open on the table. The email was pulled up, the metadata showing where it had been forwarded, the IP address. Room 05. Jungkook froze in the doorway, his heart hammering against his ribs like it wanted to break out, and run. Taehyung didn't look at him, he just reached for his coffee, took a sip, then finally spoke. I never told anyone about the film. His voice was soft, careful, like someone tiptoeing across glass. So how did it get out, Kook? Jungkook opened his mouth, closed it. His throat was dry. There was a ringing in his ears. His mind screamed for a way out, any exit, any escape. But Taehyung didn't raise his voice, that didn't accuse him, he just asked. And somehow, that made it worse. He wanted to say I'm sorry. He wanted to say I didn't mean to. He wanted to say I was angry and stupid and scared, and I didn't think. But instead, he said nothing, because some kinds of guilt sit too deep to name. Taehyung stood, finally, no drama. No door slam. No tears. He just looked at Jungkook and said, I didn't want to be a hero. I just wanted us to stay whole. And then he walked out. For the first time since their debut, Jungkook felt something worse than shame, that he felt alone. The days that followed were quiet, but colder. Their group chats turned into logistical tools, coordinating schedules, discussing sets and rehearsals. But gone were the emojis, the late-night banter, the memes Taehyung used to send at 2 a.m. just to make someone laugh. Jungkook still showed up, he still smiled, still sang. But the air around them had changed. The members felt it, the staff felt it, the fans felt it, and somewhere between one performance and the next, they all started to wonder. What happened to Taekook? The live performance ended in thunderous applause, camera lights, fans chanting, confetti like artificial snow. But backstage, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Jungkook pulled off his earpiece, sweat clinging to his skin, his chest still rising and falling from adrenaline. He glanced sideways. Taehyung stood at the far end of the hallway, half-shadowed, speaking quietly with a Kordi Nuna. He didn't look over, didn't smile, didn't see him. He hadn't, not really, in weeks. Online, rumors were becoming religion. Fan theories filled timelines, breakdown threads, slow-mo videos, supposed body language analysis. People pointed out how Taehyung barely touched Jungkook on stage anymore, how their eyes never locked. The fandom buzzed like bees disturbed. Taekook is dead. He resents him. Something broke. They didn't know how right they were. Jungkook scrolled endlessly, T first, out of habit, then out of self-destruction. Every comment stung like salt water in a wound he'd try to forget. I used to love Jungkook, but how can he be okay knowing he ruined that chance for Tae? Taehyung deserved that movie. Jungkook wanted to scream into the void that he never asked for this, that he never wanted to be someone Taehyung had to give up his future for. But what tore at him most wasn't the public it was the silence from Taehyung. Not anger, not revenge, just distance. Taehyung, meanwhile, had begun disappearing in plain sight, that he stayed after rehearsals alone, took longer walks, avoided shared vans when he could, not out of cruelty, but survival, that he had always known how to hide his emotions. But now it wasn't about hiding. It was about holding on, because something inside him had cracked, not from the betrayal, but from the weight of knowing the one person he tried to protect was the one who pulled the trigger. And yet, he couldn't hate Jungkook. That was the worst part. One night, Jungkook couldn't take it anymore. He found Taehyung in the practice room, sitting on the floor, legs stretched out, staring at the ceiling as if waiting for it to collapse. Jungkook stood at the door for a full minute before speaking. "You think I did it on purpose, don't you?" Taehyung didn't look away from the ceiling. "It doesn't matter. It does to me." A long silence followed. Then Taehyung sat up slowly, finally meeting his eyes. His voice was tired, frayed at the edges. "You wanted to stop being pitted. I get it. But you let the truth out. And the truth burned both of us." Jungkook swallowed hard. "So what now?" Taehyung stood, brushed imaginary dust from his pants. He passed Jungkook without touching him, but said one thing before he left. "Now, we learn how to stand next to each other without pretending we're still whole." From that night forward, they worked like ghosts beside each other. Functional, polite, professional. But the magic, the invisible thread that had once tethered them tightly, that had once lit up stages and hearts, was frayed beyond recognition. The fans saw it, the members felt it, and the world slowly began to mourn something it never fully understood. If this one gets out, it's not just your friendship that breaks. It's the whole group. Namjoon's voice was calm, but the tension in the room was volcanic. He was standing at the head of the long conference table, his jaw tight, hands pressed flat on the surface like he was holding the world in place. Jungkook sat on one end, barely breathing. Taehyung on the other, eyes unreadable. The rest of the members filled the space in between like live wires that on the screen behind Namjoon. A screenshot glared like a spotlight. A draft article, not yet published, but circulating. From an unnamed source close to the group, the piece detailed not only Taehyung's rejected film role and the IP leak, but something deeper, that a private voice recording. Someone had been recording arguments in the dorm, and now that audio was in a reporter's hands, Taehyung felt something cold wrap around his spine. The conversation in that file, he remembered it. A heated night, weeks ago, Not even a full argument, just fragments. A moment when he muttered under his breath, unaware anyone was nearby. He'll never understand what I gave up. I didn't do it for applause. I did it so he could keep breathing. And now, that quiet pain was about to be twisted into a headline. BTS rift. Leaked recording reveals Taehyung's resentment toward Jungkook. The article hadn't gone live yet, but it would, soon, unless they stopped it. How did they get that recording? Yoongi asked, voice low, eyes sharp. He didn't ask who made it. He already knew. There were only 2 people in the dorm that night, and one of them had left the door open by accident. Jungkook couldn't look at Taehyung. He felt the guilt like a tidal wave crashing behind his eyes. He'd spoken to the reporter before. He'd let things slip, but this was a new depth, a betrayal that hadn't been planned, but had still been his fault. The device that captured the audio, his phone. Voice memos. He'd hit record in a moment of self-pity and forgot it was even running. And then, he uploaded his backup to the cloud without checking. The reporter must have had access to a share drive from that earlier call. A casual, stupid mistake. And now the damage was irreversible. You gave him a match and a gasoline, Jimin said coldly, arms crossed. He wasn't yelling, but he didn't need to. You could have ruined him. The room was full of thick silence, except for the whir of the air conditioner and the sound of Jungkook's shallow breathing. I did ruin him, he whispered. Taehyung stood then. Slow, controlled. No, he said softly. You didn't ruin me. Everyone looked at him. His eyes weren't angry, just hollow. You just showed me I was fighting for someone who didn't want to be protected. Management made their calls. The PR team scrambled. The reporter was warned. Lawyers were involved. The article never went live. But the trust? That was another story. After the meeting, Jungkook found Taehyung alone, leaning against the wall outside the elevator. The hallway was quiet, sterile. Jungkook approached cautiously. Taehyung held up a hand. Don't. Please. Just let me explain. Explain what? Taehyung turned, voice low. That you didn't mean to record me? That you didn't mean to leak the film thing? That you didn't mean to make me feel like I was the only one carrying the weight of this group for a while? Jungkook had no reply, because every word would sound like a lie. Taehyung shook his head. You keep thinking this is about the film, or the email, or the audio. It's not. Then what is it about? It's about the fact that you let the world believe I was the villain, when I never even asked to be the hero. The elevator opened. Taehyung stepped in, and as the doors closed, he looked at Jungkook one last time. I would have stayed for you 100 more times. But now, I don't even know if I'd sit next to you. That night, fans noticed the seating arrangement at a surprise event was off. Jungkook stood on the far right, Taehyung on the far left. Not once did their eyes meet. And by morning, #ProtectTaehyung was trending worldwide. The plane touched down in Paris under a slate-gray sky. They were there for a global music award, an international stage, flashing cameras, and a lineup of interviews that would stream live to millions. That on paper, it was business as usual. But behind the scenes, everything was splintering. From the moment they stepped off the plane, fans noticed it. The silence between Taehyung and Jungkook wasn't subtle anymore. It was loud. In press conferences, Jungkook turned slightly away. Taehyung's smiles didn't reach his eyes. Even their stylists began separating their prep times. Still, they performed. Still, they delivered, because that's what BTS did, even when it hurt. But on the second night, something cracked. After a private dinner with industry execs, Jungkook came back late, his knuckles red, his expression distant. Namjoon found him in the stairwell of the hotel, sitting on the floor, hoodie up, knees tucked to his chest. They said, I'm lucky Taehyung didn't press charges for defamation, he said, voice hollow. I was drunk when I talked to that reporter. I thought I was protecting myself by throwing him under the bus. Jungkook didn't reply. Namjoon sighed. You're not the only one who's ever felt cornered, Kook. The difference is, he didn't make you bleed for it. Meanwhile, Taehyung stood by the window of his room, watching the Eiffel Tower blink in the distance. His phone buzzed with messages he didn't open. That a staff member had slipped him a USB earlier, containing a raw behind-the-scenes clip the company had buried. In it, Jungkook was caught crying after a performance, whispering into his own hands, I ruined us. He'll never forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me. Taehyung pressed pause, then play again, then finally closed his eyes. The next night, during their group rehearsal for the award stage, the tension snapped at a small timing issue. A missed mark. Nothing big, but Taehyung finally snapped. If you're not going to show up for us, don't pretend out there. Everyone froze. The room went still. Jungkook turned. You think I haven't been showing up? I've been dragging myself to every stage trying to fix something I broke. You don't fix things by showing up broken. Taehyung cut in sharp. You fix them by being honest before they collapse. Silence. No one moved. Then Yoongi stepped in, clapping once. Enough. Both of you. We didn't survive this long to implode in Paris. The performance that night was near perfect, but the cameras didn't catch the moment Taehyung, walking off stage, finally let the mask slip, and Jungkook, standing behind him, reached forward, almost touched his shoulder. Almost. The letter arrived in a sea of gifts. Paris had ended, but the fallout hadn't. Back in Seoul, the group resumed schedules with clockwork precision, but the emotional clock between Taehyung and Jungkook still frozen. Then the fan mail arrived. Dozens of bags, stacks of envelopes. The usual, handmade bracelets, art, photo books, letters written in shaky Korean, some in English, some just with hearts and names. And one envelope, plain, unmarked, cream-colored, slipped unnoticed into Taehyung's pile that he almost threw it away. But something made him stop. He opened on the dorm balcony, the wind soft and unassuming, the city below humming like a lullaby. Inside, a single sheet, handwritten in black ink. I don't know what's going on between you two, but I wanted to say thank you, Taehyung. Not for being an idol, not even for your music, but for staying. My brother struggled with depression. He told me once, if one person in the world chooses to stay, maybe I can too. That person was you. Please don't let the pain between you and Jungkook erase what you've built. You save people you'll never even meet. Taehyung folded the letter carefully, hands trembling. Not from cold, but from the kind of ache that sits deeper than anger. He didn't cry, he just stood there for a long time. Down the hall, Jungkook couldn't sleep. He hadn't slept well in weeks, but that night, something gnawed at him worse than usual. He kept hearing Taehyung's voice in his head. You just showed me I was fighting for someone who didn't want to be protected. And then the memory of Taehyung walking offstage in Paris, shoulders tense, chin high, but hands curled into fists. Jungkook sat up, grabbed his phone, stared at it. Then, instead of texting, he walked. Taehyung didn't turn when he heard the door to the balcony slide open, but Jungkook stepped beside him anyway, silent for a beat. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a note of his own, crease smudged. I got one too, Jungkook said. Taehyung blinked. From a fan? Jungkook nodded, voice low. She said she forgave me even if you never do. So we don't need to be perfect. Just honest. Taehyung exhaled, slow. The kind of exhale you release after holding something too long. You should have started there, he said quietly. Jungkook looked down. I'm sorry, Tae. No dramatic monologue. No defense. Just 3 words that, for once, didn't come too late. Taehyung finally turned to him, eyes dark and tired, but softer. I know. And in that moment, under blinking city lights, with no cameras, no microphones, no makeup, they weren't idols. They weren't a scandal. They were just 2 boys who'd survived too much and said too little for far too long. They didn't hug. They didn't need to. The next day, the group posted a photo. All 7 in '01 mentioned that Taehyung and Jungkook stood side by side again. But fans noticed, they always noticed, the theater was small, intimate, just enough seats to hold a few hundred fans. No cameras, no press, no staff barking directions through walkies. This was Taehyung's idea, a stripped-down acoustic showcase. And dancers. No smoke machines, no spectacle. Just him, a mic, and silence. The kind of silence that used to scare him. The kind he used to drown in during sleepless nights when the group felt like glass. What he feared even breathing too loudly might make everything shatter. But tonight he chose that silence, because some truths deserved to be heard without noise. Jungkook sat in the last row. Uninvited, technically, but not unwelcome. Thought he wore a hoodie, face half covered, hands clenched together in his lap. He didn't know what Taehyung would say, or sing, or do. But he knew he had to hear it. The stage lights dimmed. Taehyung stepped forward and, oh fanfare. Just a soft inhale into the mic. This isn't a comeback, he said. This isn't even a performance. This is a song I wrote the night I almost said goodbye. You could hear the entire room hold its breath. Not goodbye to music. Not to you guys. To us. A single acoustic guitar chord hummed through the speakers. Then came the lyrics, raw, stripped, honest. I stayed when it hurt slash, but I never said why I smile for the camera slash while learning to cry, and even when you let go of me slash, I held on for two not to be a hero slash, just to protect you. Jungkook's vision blurred. He'd imagined what redemption might feel like, but he hadn't expected it to be so quiet, so humbled, so forgiving. After the performance, fans filed out slowly, many crying, some whispering. Jungkook stayed behind, watching Taehyung on stage, packing his own mic, no manager in sight. Jungkook finally stood, walked down the aisle, each step louder than the last. Taehyung looked up when he reached the edge of the stage. They just stood there for a second, no words, no forced smiles, no masks. Then Jungkook reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper. His lyrics, the ones he hadn't dared share before, he handed it over. My turn, he said softly. Taehyung took it, unfolded it. Read the first line. I thought you wanted to be a hero slash, but you just wanted to keep me whole. And that was it. That was the bridge. Not back to the way things were, but towards something new, something honest. Weeks later, they released a surprise track, a duet. No teasers, no promotions, just a midnight upload titled Whole. And in the outro, you could hear it, Taehyung's quiet harmony, Jungkook's trembling voice, and the sound of two people stitching something back together, thread by fragile thread. The end.